and welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on the wonderful KUHS Denver, the stream. And yes, it is the high point of my week, as you know, to be here with you. It's so exciting to know that I'm helping inspire a renaissance of spirit in some of you, helping some of you get through this crazy time we're in, and sharing my voice. I have to tell you, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today on the Dr. Elisa Show, is that sometimes when we are soul tired, which we all are right now, it is sharing our voice, sharing our gifts, sharing sometimes our fears that make powerful changes in the world around us. So, welcome. How are you doing wherever you are? Take a deep breath. Do a little centering and sink into the sound of my voice. Who am I? You should know by now, but just in case you don't, PhD in psych and a professional channeler and astrologer. Came out on international radio as a psychic, stuff I've been doing since I was a kid, but never necessarily shared. I mean, I put myself through my PhD as an astrologer, but always hid a little bit of what I did. The radio's been a profound gift to me because those senses in me and that ability is getting stronger. Before I go on also, I want you to just give you some updates about my shows. So today, no guest, just me. Next week on Monday at 2:30 Mountain Standard Time is the Crystal Ball Hour. Live, and I do live readings. You will be able to post your questions in the Facebook site, and I'll be able to do a reading for you. And yes, I do bring in the crystal balls, and yes, I do channel readings. And as an addition, we are going to be able to have you text the studio line. And that's just awesome, because I'll be able to talk to more of you, to answer more questions. And that's what I want to do. And then the week after that, back here on a Thursday, I have an amazing guest. And we are going to talk about the fear of money and how to deal with it and what it means to consider yourself able to have a financial foundation that is strong. And how do you build it? So that's what's coming up. I think I also told you last week, maybe I didn't, that I actually finished my second novel. I am now in the painful process of editing, and I've just re-edited the first chapter. But you can still get my first novel on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com and probably other places, called The Way of the Well. It's a spiritual romance. And it, I think, helps, much like the show, I share ideas and notions, but in a story form. And that helps all of us find new ways to grow, to explore our own feelings, to honor and respect our process. So The Way of the Well. The second novel, I'm not sure when it's going to come out. I was hopeful that I could get it out by Christmas, but I'm not going to guarantee that. And the name of it is Dark Fire. And if you go on my Facebook site, there's a link to my website with the first chapter. And I'm going to, I have to update the website, but you'll be able to find the first chapter of Dark Fire free on my website. So I think those are my updates for me. That, and just letting you know that this is an amazing station and I'm glad you're here. So what are we talking about today? Oh, one more thing. My sponsor. So I do sponsor my own shows, but I have this amazing sponsor, veteranspride.org. They build these shadow boxes for soldiers, for vets, and they're a little expensive and they're so meaningful. And so if you're looking for a way to be a philanthropist this year, and remember, that was one of my goals, that each of us would be a philanthropist in some way this year, go to veteranspride.org. Donate $5. Trust me, all of those little donations, just the little bit that we can give, they help. And in this case, they help a veteran. And then I sponsor my show. And so you can find me at elisarobin.com. I have soul sessions, I have packages, and I actually want to talk about why you would talk to an astrologer more than once. So we'll go into that today. I'm also going to attempt to multitask here and pull up the Facebook site and watch for any comments you have there. So feel free to chat as we go. And like I said, will multitask as I do this, hopefully. So, the topic. Soul tired. What does that mean? Let's start there. You've heard me say before that it is our life mission to follow our soul's craving. We are born with a plan. And many of us, many different traditions and religions and spiritual traditions, believe that before we are born, our soul makes a decision, makes a commitment, and comes here to fulfill an experience, to resolve perhaps old karma, to resolve perhaps past life issues, and comes here on a soul's journey to grow and to experience and to be the best spark of light in the universe that we can be. In Judaism, we call this our tikkun, the healing of the universe through embracing our spark and letting our spark shine. Every tradition has this. Every tradition has something like this. That soul spark can become tired. It's hard. And especially right now. Even if you're not following politics, even if, and this is not a political conversation in any way, shape, or form, so I don't care where you are on this crazy spectrum, even if you feel safe from COVID, even if you're not worried about whatever in the universe, the world is in a bit of turmoil. And we pick that up. Sometimes the only way I can keep my soul from being exhausted is to not pay attention to anything outside myself. And yet, that feels kind of shallow. Okay, I can donate to the causes that I think are good and helpful, but I still am aware of the harshness of the world. And again, wherever you are, whatever you believe, it's easy to see that there's harshness around us. And right now, this year, very few of us can move away from that. So many of us feel that soul level exhaustion of how do I deal with this? Am I supposed to change the world, heal the world? Am I right? Am I wrong? Are those other people right or wrong? Am I listening to the message? Am I just yelling at a message? What am I supposed to do? And we hear lots of great advice, right? Turn off the TV, turn off your social media, go for a walk. Go outside, take a break. And that's marvelous advice. Be with the people you love if you can. Marvelous advice. And I have to say, sometimes I do that, and I'm still soul tired. And I'm in Colorado, the air is very dry, and I'm going to be taking drinks of water while I'm here on the show with you. Okay, so what do we do? I was meditating on this show for the last several days, and that topic of soul tired. And I came up with a different way of approaching it, which is not unusual. If you're an astrologer out there, I think I've told you, Aquarius sun, Aquarius moon, Scorpio rising, Saturn on my ascendant. Yeah, quite a bit rebellious, and often go deep. I go deep. So what have I come up with? And that's what I want to talk about today. Please do feel free to post in the Facebook site. I actually have the shows up and running on Facebook, and I'll be able to see some of your comments. Okay. How do I help inspire a renaissance of spirit within you while your soul is tired? There's a Jewish saying that life is a narrow bridge, and our past, the important thing is to not be afraid. But how do we do that? And then I realized that we're not supposed to run away from our fear on this narrow bridge. The only way to not be afraid is to face that fear, is to look at it and to go deep into it. There's an outward bound saying that I love, which is if you can't get out of it, go into it. I think it pretty much relates to when you're trying to do some rock climbing. But it's such a powerful statement for life. If you can't get out of it, go deep in. If you try to run away from it, you'll never get out, you'll never get away. It will just follow you. The way we heal our souls, the way we take care of this soul level tiredness is to go deep, is to go in. And that's what I've been doing for several days, I have to admit. That's what I've been doing. And you also know that I have a tendency to do some self-disclosure on this show. Not because the show's about me. The show's about you. The show is for you. But sometimes when somebody else self-discloses, we feel the courage. We have enough courage and power to admit, to go in, to look at ourselves. And sometimes to say out loud what we're afraid of. So that's what today's about, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I have to also add that saying our fears aloud often takes their power away, because we're not hiding from it anymore. And when I look around the world, what I see is fear. Yeah, people are angry, but underneath that is fear. Left, right, middle, up, down, sideways. Fear. So that is what our soul is trying to heal. Okay, now how do we know that? Because, I could just come up with that and do a really fun show. Let me play with a little astrology for you and just talk about what's going on out there. And I know I've said this before, but let's just go a little bit deeper. The planet Mars, which is the planet of war, but also motivation, and all things that we consider masculine energy, which doesn't mean they're male, but the part of us that energizes and moves forward and pursues, and it's also sexual energy. All of that is attached to Mars. Mars is in its home sign of Aries. Aries and Mars are the same thing. So Aries governs those things. And Mars in the sky right now is retrograde. We've talked about that and what that means, right? It means we have an optical illusion. It looks like the planet is going backwards. It's not. The laws of astrophysics prevent any planet from changing its orbit like that. But relative to us, it looks like the planet is going backwards. So all of that energy that we want to send out, motivate, energize, change, grow, sexual encounters, all of that stuff, it pushes us inward. To reflect, to think about it. It's like being dressed for battle and not being let out. It's like being, juiced and energized, and you can't go outside. And doesn't that sound like where we are right now? Juiced and energized and ready, be it in your career or your relationships, and we've got all this crazy stuff going on. We feel caged, or we feel like we're on a narrow bridge. And yeah, I know, a lot of people are like, no, I'm fine, but just for an hour. Well, for 45 minutes. Just for a little bit longer. Ask yourself, just ask yourself, privately, is there some fear in there? Am I being pushed inward? That's one planet, Mars. Chiron, and we've talked about Chiron, which is an asteroid, is also in the sign of Aries, hanging out or canoodling with Mars. Okay, what's Chiron? Chiron, the story, the myth of Chiron. Chiron was a centaur and didn't like being a centaur, but he actually was a healer, this amazing healer. But then at some point he gets wounded and he becomes his wound. We've all done this at times in our life. We know people like this. You bang your hand on something, you stub a toe, and for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you're your toe. All you are is that pain. or you get sick and all you can think about is the illness. You become the wound. And that's normal and natural at times in our life, but it isn't healthy if we stay our wound. Chiron is our emotional wound, which can be highlighted absolutely through a physical wound or an illness. But it's our emotional wound. And it's one that we came here with. Again, astrology is this notion that we come here with past energies, past lives, past, or maybe if you don't believe in that, epigenetics, the wounds we inherited through time. And if you don't like that one, things that happened to us as children that we're still carrying. Chiron is that wound. But it's not supposed to just heal. Right? There's a difference between healing it and getting over it and honoring it, respecting it. Again, going into it. What is that emotional wound? And I'm pretty sure I did that, though, on one of my shows. If you'd like me on another show to go through all the aspects of Chiron and talk about your individual charts, I can do that. But you need to let me know. So you have to start communicating with me. This is a two-way street, even though it's radio. So Chiron right now in the sky is hanging out with Mars. Everybody on the planet then is affected by this energy of go in and look at where your anger comes from. Look at what your motivation is about. Look at the undercurrent. What is it that drives you? It might be awesome, but under it, there's also fear. What is that fear? And I'll do some self-reveal in a bit here, but I want to add one more element to the astrology. There's another asteroid out there, smaller than Pluto, bigger in mass. Some astrologers think that perhaps it'll be called a planet at some point. It was discovered in 2005, and it is the asteroid Eris, E-R-I-S, who was Mars's sister. So we have, or Aries' sister, so Aries and Eris, and they're both in the sign of Aries. Mars, the planet, Eris, the asteroid, both in the sign of Aries. So let me tell you the story of Eris. I love the story because it so captures that energy. The other name for Eris is Discordia, which I have to say always reminds me of something like the Addams Family, right? Right? Discordia. What a great name for that old TV show. What Discordia means, what that asteroid represents, is exactly what that sounds like. So here's the story. Imagine Eris, this goddess, and she was a goddess, was always depicted as ugly, unattractive. We'll just leave her at unattractive. And so the gods and goddesses have some grand party, and they don't invite her. One, because she's not very attractive, and goddesses are supposed to be attractive by some rule of Greek and Roman mythology. And also, she creates discord. Well, what do you think happens when you don't invite the goddess who likes to create discord? What do you think is going to happen? So in the middle of the party, she throws a golden apple out into the middle of the party. And we have these other goddesses there. We have Hera and Athena and Venus. And if you're a historian, an old historian, a Greek historian, you know this story. And the apple says something on it like for the fairest or for the most beautiful. So here is this goddess, this woman who is only considered by who she is on the outside, which is not attractive. And she throws this apple in, and the goddesses rise to the bait. They fight over the apple. And what are they fighting over? I mean, they don't need a golden apple, right? They're goddesses. They're fighting over a title of being the most beautiful. Well, Zeus is way too smart, too savvy to try to pick between the goddesses and say who's beautiful, so he picks this guy, this human, Paris, and says, you decide. And Hera says, if you choose me, I will give you political savvy. And Athena says, if you pick me, I will give you wisdom, because she was also the goddess of wisdom and learning. And Venus says, if you pick me, I'll give you the most beautiful woman on the planet. And we all know what the guy did, right? He picked the girl. And that girl happened to be Helen of Troy, married to somebody else. She's kidnapped, she's given to Paris. Boom, we have the Trojan War. Over a golden apple. Really over an insecurity. A goddess's insecurity that she wasn't the most beautiful of the most beautiful. So, I mean, I can give you a personal example. I was in graduate school, my master's in geology. And I really felt like I just wasn't up to snuff to some of these other people in my classes, these other geology students. And many of them were PhDs and master's degree students were mixed together. And I went to the chair of the program and said, I'm just wondering, like, I don't know how to deal with this. And he looked at me, and this is at a pretty high-end university, and he says, you know, probably the top 5% of people in terms of your motivation and drive and ability get into masters and PhDs in a hard science. Are you okay at being the bottom of the top 5%? Yeah, actually I am. Actually I am. Am I okay at being the least beautiful in a room of beautiful women? Yeah, and especially because as a woman, it's not how I judge other women. But that was Eris, Discordia. Let me have these women focus on the least important thing and cause a war. Now, Eris has two sides, because she gave them an option. They could have said, why don't we each take the apple for a third of the year? And for a third of the year, we can feel like the most beautiful. They could have picked up the apple and tossed it back. They could have picked up the apple and handed it to Helen of Troy. She was the most beautiful on the planet. They had choice. And that aspect of Eris is what is offered to us now. So let's put all that together. Are you tracking with me, I hope? Here on KUHS Denver, the Dr. Elisa Show. Are you tracking? Are you with me? We're talking astrology and our soul, right? Our choices, our ability to make choices, to look at our fears and make different choices and get over this soul-tired level that we're all experiencing. I'm just looking in here to see if any of you, and I'm going to sort of reboot. I've learned this. You have to refresh. If you refresh your Facebook site, occasionally you can see comments. Hi, Mary. You know what? Today I'm not doing readings, but if you check back in Monday at 2:30, I will be doing readings then, free readings. So thank you for watching, though. Thank you, thank you. And let me just see if anyone else is out here. And the rest of you I know who are not posting are simply hypnotized by my voice. Okay, I'm not seeing a bunch of other stuff. So back to Mars and Chiron and Aries. What are we being asked? So Chiron, so we know Aries. Let's go back to Chiron. How do you have a wound that isn't supposed to heal, that does you any good? What is that about? I want you to think about that. Wounds can make us move in one of two ways. Again, every planet, every sign has a dark and a light, and they don't exist without each other. That's the thing to remember. Darkness, it's only in the darkness that we see the Milky Way. Remember that. They exist together. So what is Chiron doing? Chiron is saying, you have this wound. Do you want to become that wound? Is that what you want to do? Or do you want to use that wound in service to the world? By being able to empathize with people who have a similar wound, who resonate in a similar way. What do you want to do? How do you want to play that? And again, the choice is yours. And I've been playing with Chiron a lot in my chart and what it means, and for a long time I realized that Chiron for me meant building a sense of security for myself, from myself, from who I am. It happens to coincide with my North and South nodes, and we've talked about those on the show, but again, if you're interested, I can redo that show. Here's what I want you to do. I want you, if you have a chart, how do you find out where this is affecting you? Find Aries in your chart. So remember, a chart is a big circle divided into these little pie-shaped things we call houses. And everybody has Aries somewhere in their chart. Wherever you have Aries, that's where you're being challenged, excuse me. I'm channeling, you're being challenged. So I'll give you an example. Where is it in my chart? And I honestly, if you're an astrologer, by the time I do a few of these shows, you're going to know everything about me. It's fairly funny, and trust me, I don't expect you, the listener, to self-disclose. But I hope that when I talk about myself, that it helps you feel empowered to talk about yourself. So all of this is happening in my 5th chart. My Mars happens to be in Aries, happens to be square my North node and South node. What does that mean? It means that I brought some fairly deep fears from a past life about being loved, about being punished for moving in certain directions, for being hushed, for being passionate, for being fears of being, which are things that have happened in my life. Fears of revealing who I actually am, like this, doing this, which clearly I've gotten over, and having people truly see me and know me, and at the same time feeling compelled to step up and stand up for the underdog, to step up, to stand up for those who are hurting in the ways that perhaps I hurt. And I have a history of doing that I don't need to share. And so what does that play out from you? I'm going to share this. This was the impetus for this entire show, was looking at Eris, looking at Chiron, looking at Mars retrograde. Remember, retrograde pushes us inward. Chiron and Aries are sitting there just stirring the juice, right? Stirring the juice. And I realized that part of my fear is that the relationships I've had that perhaps have been painful or where my heart has been broken, maybe it was me. Maybe when I was a child and told that I wasn't lovable, that I'd never have somebody love me, maybe they were right. And that fear just, popped out into the open. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. And do you realize I just said that on international radio? Again, to empower you, because what happens when we hear ourselves say that? We feel safe looking at it and asking the question and wondering who we do want to be, and looking back and checking who we were, and realizing that we always have a choice forward to be our spark, to be our best self. And that wound, it's not that wound goes away. It's not that I want to go, oh no, in some sort of arrogant stance. Oh, of course it's not me. That's arrogance. That's not a spark. That's not empathy. That's not our best self. But I can embrace it and understand that for many people right now, that fear is manifesting. Am I worthy? Am I lovable? Because if fear is what we're feeling, how do we heal that? Now, I got to say, I do believe there's more emotions on the planet than fear and love. But feeling like you never deserve, and becoming I don't deserve, becoming that wound, or feeling that you're not lovable, or you're always the problem, and you become that wound, you create that life. And the only way out is in. Always. Always, always. I have to say that one of my favorite books is Alice in Wonderland. And it's crazy, and I know it's crazy, and I know all about the author, who was actually a brilliant mathematician. But that story always intrigues me, because Alice couldn't leave by backing out. She could only leave by going through, by going in, by going deep. And yeah, it's just a story. But she finds her voice in that story. It's just a dream. But no, it's not. It's a moment of self-reliance. It's a moment of becoming strong and secure. This might sound like Brene Brown's work on vulnerability, right? That sometimes we have to embrace our vulnerability, and that embracing that is where we find our strength. And yeah, a similar message, right? Where do you embrace your wound? Where do you embrace your fear? And not become your fear. Not become your wound. How do you do that? I really wish I had some, 5 steps, right? 5 brilliant steps to do that, because then I could write a book and be famous. I don't have 5 steps, but I do have suggestions that I hope help. To begin with, I think recognizing that fear is the great equalizer is really important. We all know people who we think are fearless. I have to tell you, I had a conversation once with a buddy who was a Marine fighter pilot, and I said something about the courage that takes. And he said, yeah, but mostly it's training. The training is drummed into you so intensely that when you become afraid, you follow those steps. You follow your training and manage your fear. He then became an international pilot, and he said, same thing. You fly into a storm. You manage your fear. You follow all of your training, and you know you'll come through the storm. And I realized that one of the things we're not trained to do is walk through our fears. Boys are told to not be afraid. Maybe little girls are encouraged to be afraid because then they behave. And then we try to teach people to not be afraid by criticizing them for being cowards, which will not work. I just want to say that. It will never work. And I cannot tell you the number of times that someone has said, what, are you afraid? And then my Mars and Aries rose up and I tried things. I realized that the fear of being a coward was masking some fear of something else, of being wrong, of trying and failing. And when did we say that success was the only option? Well, that's what we teach, isn't it? That's what we teach people. If you're going to fall in love, make sure it's right. You get married, make sure you do it right. When you go to school, make sure you have the right answers. When you're doing anything in the world, make sure you do the best job all the time. So, I've got this master's in geology, and I was when I was working, the leadership of where I was working said something to the effect of, we want you to show up 150%. And because I'm a double Aquarius, I was trying to decide if I had to clone myself and bring that half of that clone self with me. Like, how do I possibly do that? Just do the math. It doesn't work. I have to show up. I have to bring my best self for work, sure. But when we simply try to inspire people to move past their fears by being better, we are telling them to walk that narrow bridge. It's a narrow bridge, just don't be afraid, and that's not the message. Walk that narrow bridge. Look at your fear. Embrace your fear. And in the case of this sort of theology, no, you're not alone. You're not out there alone. There is support. Depending on your spiritual tradition, there are angels supporting you. There is a God supporting you. There is a goddess supporting you. The universe is supporting you. The force is supporting you. Whatever. That there's more than you. And your soul came here to face that fear. Well, I didn't come here to face that fear in a world without support for that, without help for that. And so sure, I have faced challenges. You have faced challenges. We've all faced challenges. We are all facing profound challenges right now. And it's scary. Let yourself feel that. Even if you're the one who's supposed to be strong and secure and brave for your family, in the dark of night, in the darkness, your real self shows up. Let yourself be afraid. Let yourself feel it. Fear paralyzes us when we ignore it. Fear paralyzes us when we try to push it away. But when we're afraid, when we embrace that fear, when we look at that fear, when we look at that golden apple that was thrown, right, and we're afraid we're not the most beautiful, and we make a different choice. Fear never, at that point, paralyzes us. Now, does that mean everything in the world turns out perfect? No, of course not. People get sick and die. Things happen in this world, and we know that. Things happen. We're human. Viktor Frankl, one of my very, very favorite psychologists, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And if you haven't read it, I suggest you do. Man's Search for Meaning. Written back in the world when the word man meant men and women. So, yeah, don't worry about that part. Just try to read it. We have this man who is swept up in World War II and survives 3 or 4, I can't quite remember, concentration camps. Which is amazing, right? I mean, it's just like incredible that he survived. And while he was there, he, in a moment or in a bit of time, started to realize that when he only focused on the nightmare he was in, and in the book it says something like he was wondering if he could find a piece of wire to close his shoe so it would stay on. He wondered if there was a way to get maybe a piece of turnip in the soup so he'd have a little more nutrition, and wondered if he should barter one of his cigarettes for something. And in that moment somewhere he realized that he did not have to think that. He was stuck, he was trapped, he was there, but his brain was free, his soul was still free. And he started to imagine himself in a beautiful setting, in a auditorium, surrounded by people, and it was warm, and he was safe, and there was a glass of water there for him, and people were listening to him speak about the psychology of meaning, finding meaning. And from that horrific experience, he realized that when we know why, we can face any what. When we have a why in our lives, here's why I'm here. Here's what I'm here to do. We can face any what. That is the solace for our soul level exhaustion. We look in a lot of different areas, don't we? Like, what's the joke right now? The COVID-19, gaining weight. Maybe it's the COVID-19, I'm going to run more miles. Maybe it's the I'm going to take my mask off, or I'm going to leave my mask on. We're looking for solace in so many ways. And yeah, I have to admit, right, that just get me outside for a long walk and get me on my bicycle, and before our freak blizzard, our freak snowstorm in Denver, it was get in my kayak, and it definitely is talk to my friends and reach out to people I love, and it's definitely all of that, and learn more astrology, and you, the radio, right? This amazing KUHS Denver radio station. Yeah, it heals my soul. It starts. But where does that last? How does that last? It lasts when I go in, when I get that I have meaning and purpose. It's funny, last night I had this dream. And I have to tell you, when I'm doing a radio show, often, when I'm doing this show, and the other show too, I often come with sort of pages of things I could say, script I could say. And this time, I knew I wanted to talk about Mars and Chiron and Eris. But I'd been having dreams about a certain topic, and I had this epiphany about myself, and I gave myself permission to come in and just talk to you. Just talk to you from that place in my soul that is embracing its fear, and to see how it goes, to see how it works. I would love, absolutely love, a message in Facebook, either maybe a thumbs up or a heart, or just a message, if you're listening, about if this is resonating with you and how it's working. Because my soul is trying to talk to your soul right now. And again, not political. I don't care what side of whatever divide you're on. What I know is you're human. And what I know is that when you're human, fear is part of your life, regardless of how you deny it. So I had this dream. Most of it was just, a dream, kind of weird, right? But at some point, I've been looking for another dog, and waiting to find the perfect dog. And in this dream, somebody had gone and let the dog out for me because I was busy doing something else. And whoever this woman was came up to me and said, "The dog is a little sad. She doesn't have meaning and purpose. And you're going to have to remember that when you work with your dog, she needs meaning and purpose." And that phrase kept repeating in my dream, meaning and purpose, meaning and purpose. That was one part. The other part was dealing with scary situations, and sort of I've had nightmares since I was a little kid. And so I have this reoccurring theme of scary situations that then I'm able to resolve. I'm almost always able to resolve them in the dream. And I thought that is the message for this show. Our fears are often resolved when we know our meaning and purpose. And how do we know that? What is that meaning and purpose? And it's often not what we think it is. It isn't, I just finished my second novel. My meaning and purpose is not having a bestseller. I'm a writer. I have to write. Writing is a sensual experience for me. It's as good as many other sensual experiences. And I said sensual, okay? I love to write. I have to write. It's part of my meaning and purpose. But being a bestseller, yeah, that's not it. That's it. That it would be fine, and that's achievement. But it's the writing that is my meaning and purpose. I'm on the show. Again, sharing my voice, having my voice, inspiring a renaissance of spirit in others. That's my meaning and purpose. That's what my soul came here to do. And when I'm living my meaning and purpose, I can face that fear. I can move deep into that fear. I can embrace that fear. And that fear becomes smaller and smaller and smaller because I have suddenly flooded it with light. And again, we need both the dark and the light in our lives. There's so many times I hear people say, push away the darkness, live in the light. I'm like, well, and in that typical Aquarian manner, I'm like, how do you know if it's light if you never see the darkness? You have to have both. And actually, that's one of the themes of my second novel. When we are able, though, in a brilliant darkness, to see the brilliance of light and see our fear for what it is, we can embrace it and console it and say, you're not real. You're not real. You came here to push me in a direction. You came here to lead me in a direction toward my meaning and purpose. To heal, to resolve. Because I truly don't believe life is just about healing. But I do believe that a lot of what we do as we resolve our karma and grow into our brightest spark, some of that is healing. Again, so that we don't become our wound. Okay, I'm just going to check again and see if this is resonating and who it's resonating with. Come on, I just did self-disclosure. You have to say something back to me. Something like, wow, would be good. Okay. I know, my voice has hypnotized you, which is perfectly fine. Or maybe you're just busy right now facing your fear. Embracing the wound of Chiron in your chart. So how do you find it? Let's play this out. Go to your chart. Aries exists in your chart. It just does. I don't care what else your chart looks like. And it rules one or maybe two of the houses in your chart. Whatever that house is, and you can count them. You start on the far left of the chart, in the middle, and you count down and around, counterclockwise. Wherever Aries is, you can just do a Google search and say, what is the meaning of that house? And knit together the fear and where that is, where it's expressed. It doesn't mean it's what you fear, it means it's where it shows up. Now, I have to say, and this is just going to be a commercial for working with an astrologer, I've had so many people say to me, well, so I don't get it. You're just going to look at my, like I'm an Aquarius. You're just like, no. 10 planets, 12 signs, 12 houses. It's a tapestry. Well, okay, I'll just get a printout. All right. A printout will tell you what the threads are. The sun is the color blue. The moon is the color blue. You have an ascendant the color red. Maybe Mars is the color red. That is not a tapestry. Those are disparate pieces. And they might be disparate pieces of your personality, but they're not connected. And often they conflict because the reality is life is a paradox. And so you might be angry at this, but peaceful in this situation. Fearful here and courageous there. And both of those things are true. What astrologers do is weave those threads together into the tapestry. And when you do that, you can see where you want to change in your life, where you want to grow. The tapestry, your birth tapestry, it doesn't change, but it tells you the choices that you can make. Where to hang that tapestry, if you like that tapestry, what you want to do different in the next life, how you want to redraw it this year, what you want to weave this year in your life. In a relationship, we can take two charts, put them together, and see one chart. That one chart, a composite chart, is the chart of the relationship. Or we can compare the two charts. And I'll just do this plug because I'm going to do this next week. If we compare two charts, we often can see if you were together in a past life. I have a best friend, and she's a great friend. We love each other, and her chart is more connected to my chart than any other person I've ever met, including the guy I was married to. Which is wild. So wild that I know we were together. Now, does that mean we were lovers? No. Does that mean we were good friends? No. She could have killed me in a past life. She's a doc. Maybe she came back to heal me in this life. Or anything could have happened, but we were together. So when we talk about did we have a past life together, the answer can be yes. And they could have been the corner grocer. Or they could have been somebody you disliked. Or it could have been a sibling. Does that mean you're supposed to marry them in this life? Well, it's my girlfriend, and you know, I don't make my preferences don't go that way. So no, it doesn't mean I'm supposed to marry her. And next week when I'm doing the Crystal Ball Hour, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about soulmates and reincarnation because it's a big deal. Today what I want to say is we can see our partner's fears. We can see where we're pushing them or where we can support them in healing. We can look at a composite chart and say, what is the fear of the relationship? Where together are we afraid? And what do we do about that? Because remember, that's always the next step. We have choice. What do we do about that? I grew up in a household being told to not try to do something if it was hard, if it was scary. That's scary, don't try. That's hard, don't try. I'm pretty sure I was told that because my mother liked bragging about what a coward she was, and my father knew that I was never going to fit that description. So I'm pretty sure he was trying to protect me, and so was she. But the message that I got was, if you never try, you never change. if you become your wound and your wound is fear, then the entire world is dangerous. And there's nowhere to go and nowhere to ever feel safe. And sometimes, right, we like not feeling safe. I just want to point that out. Have you been to a haunted house during Halloween, which is coming up? Which, yeah, it is one of my favorite holidays. We'll have something special on for that. Do you like roller coasters? Do you like screaming a little bit? I grew up in California, so it was Disneyland, and it was the Matterhorn in Space Mountain. And oh yeah, don't you like getting scared? Just a tad. I have to say that I get stage fright before each show. And what do I know if I get stage fright? I know that if I get stage fright, that I will bring some powerful energy to the show. I was really scared this morning, so I'm surprised you're not responding, because I was really scared, which means this should be a really powerful show for you. But maybe you're too afraid to tell me it is. And all I want to do in response to that is comfort you and tell you that without fear, humans would never survive. Right? I mean, and again, if you don't believe we evolved from something, then just go back to looking at a human being from birth to adulthood, right? Fear is what keeps us alive often. We had to know if there was a saber-toothed tiger hunting us. If you're a woman, you know that if you're out on the streets walking at night, you're catching the bus late, that fear, that bit of fear is keeping you aware of your environment. It is keeping you safe. So I just have a few minutes left, and I want to weave together again for you this notion of fear and meaning and purpose, okay? Fear, we are being pushed right now by the planets in the sky into our fears. We'll be aware of them. Don't back away. Go in, meet it, greet it, embrace it. Wow. Be sort of amazed that you have the courage to embrace your fear. Doesn't mean you have to change right now. It means you have to acknowledge and embrace. So do that, first thing. What does that let you do? It lets you see how you can use that fear. Not become that fear, but use it. Not become the wound, but use it in the world around you, to comfort your children, to comfort your parents, to be a better therapist, to be a better architect, to be a better scientist, to be a better whatever it might be. Because then what you're doing has meaning and purpose. You know, as a geologist for a while, and I have to say I had no meaning and purpose in that career. In school it was great. I loved the science of it. But I found no meaning and purpose in that career that could resonate with me. It felt like sandpaper on my soul, not something that was helping my soul. When I left that field and moved into something else, I started to find meaning and purpose. And I have to say that now I think I am happier on my soul's journey than I have ever been. I'm combining my use of voice, astrology, psychology, channeling, teaching, the writing, the things that fill me, that are all sensual for me, the things that my soul brought me here to do. And I got there in many ways by looking at my fears, not by letting them control me, but by embracing them. And that's my message. That is how you heal. That is how you get past this soul exhaustion that we are all dealing with. Not by running away. And if you're doing good things in the world, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you wish to do good things in the world, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if your soul is exhausted, take care of your soul. If you're physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, yes, take a break, get outside, take a walk, breathe deep, meditate, do all those things. And recognize that some people who lived in horrific situations were not soul exhausted. Yes, they were beaten and they were tired and they were scared, but their soul was on the right journey. All right, I really hope that made sense to you today. And I hope it moved you in some way and inspired you in some way to go deep into this moment, into this opportunity to see what lurks within you. If you're a Scorpio, you live there half the time. It's easy. If you're an Aquarius, you know, it's a little harder. The air signs, we don't want to go there. It's emotions. Emotions are scary. But go there. There's great wisdom. Deep within your womb, there is great wisdom, great guidance, and great help. So, if you've been listening, you know I have talked for an hour, and that means I'm done. So I'm going to put in just a couple more sentences and then get off in time for the next show. You can contact me for a deep depth reading for any of my packages around launching a business, relationships, soul sessions, working with your fears at elisarobin.com. You can find me on Facebook, Dr. Elisa Show. You can find me on LinkedIn, Elisa Robin, elisarobin.com. And I am more than happy to work with you and to help you through this process and to help you get past that soul exhaustion. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to KUHS Denver and the Dr. Elisa Show. Please stay tuned. There's great programming for the rest of the day and actually the rest of the week. And have an inspired day. Thank you.